Hey guys, my name is Anthony, and this is Cisco Talk.
I heard things are finally opening up.
Yeah, in Georgia, everything pretty much opened up May 31st, but um, like there's still people. It's weird because there's like certain let's say Walmart, like half of the people are wearing masks and like the other half are just like wandering about, and then like certain like restaurants, some of them are still closed and others like doing takeout now, you know. So
Mm.
and then others just completely open. But how you been though? Where you live in? The city, right?
Yeah, I'm in the city. I've been good, just chilling at home, doing a whole lot of nothing. Um,
Yeah, bro.
yeah.
Cause where do you work, bro? If you don't mind me asking.
I used to work at a company called Bright Flag. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they're a startup company. They sell legal tech
Oh,
to
that's cool.
different companies. So yeah, that was cool. Got me into sales, and then COVID happened, and they let go a bunch of people, including me. So
Damn.
I've been looking for work, but I'm not like thirsty for work, you know. So like I've gotten some offers,
Yeah,
but if the situation isn't right, I haven't really, I've rejected it. So I'm just
yeah,
waiting on the right one, going through the process.
yeah, bro. Same. Like, especially for healthcare, everything's shut down. Like the hospitals won't let me. Well, I'm trying to look into being an EMT because I have my license already,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure how this whole COVID is gonna work for it. Like, because one of my friends' brother actually just now got COVID. It's like they
Oh
just now
wow,
got like diagnosed with it. So I'm like,
damn,
damn. And we were with him like a week ago.
yeah.
So it's type crazy out here.
That's tough. Are you gonna get
That's what
tested?
I'm saying.
You concerned?
Probably. I mean, yeah, probably. There's like an urgent care around here, and they have like free testing. So
Hmm.
I'm just
Yeah.
gonna do it.
Yeah, I also know there's like a whole bunch of new jobs for like Corona for like
Yeah,
people who are like have license in health and things like that. So you should look
yeah,
into that.
yeah, definitely. Like I actually took a course on like contact tracing, so I don't know
Hmm.
like if they have that open.
Yeah.
But how's the city like? Is everything still like shut down, or
They
like because
they just reopened or they're doing phase one of opening, which I think like open up more essential workers. So a lot of people are back in the job now. You can go into the
mm-hmm,
train now. They took out the curfew. Um, so you can go like they open up barbershops, salons,
word.
small stores, not malls yet, or movie theaters,
Mm,
but slowly starting. I'm gonna
yeah.
wait a little bit before I try to hit my barber up.
Nah, bro.
Couple,
Like,
yeah,
nah, bro. I literally brought a whole whole set, and I just like been cutting my own hair. Screw
same,
it, bro. Like
same,
everybody here, like everybody around me sucks. They always mess it up.
yeah.
So I gotta take matters into my own hands now. Screw it.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's what I did senior year of Q's. I learned how to cut my own hair, and it saves me so much money then. So I only hit up the barber for like special
Yeah, bro. Like
occasions.
I'm literally, yeah. Not even that. Like I just need like a shape, but that's it. Just trim a little bit. I'm fine. The only thing that's like really gonna piss me off is like the hairline. I still have not finessed that, so
Yeah,
it's I gotta I go to them just like, yo, straighten this out for me. Bet. But aside from that, like we Gucci.
that's not bad.
Yeah, but yeah, how's the protest coming? I've seen a lot of stuff on like IG, Facebook. It's crazy,
It's crazy, man. Social media is like it's so toxic right now. You can't
bro.
really,
Social media is such a cancer, bro. Like I can't anymore, bro. Like I can't, like I cannot.
yeah, you can't really get away from it.
Yeah,
By the way, thanks for hopping on the podcast. Um,
yeah, no problem.
it's something I started because of current events. I just wanted to like
Right,
talk to people, get to see their perspective because I feel like a lot of people have things to say.
right.
Wanted to give them a platform, and also just I want to learn how to talk again, bro. Like I feel like this generation doesn't know how to talk, or just like have conversation. So it's
Yeah,
something that I wanted to do.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
trust me, yeah. Like this, some crazy ass people out here.
All right. So back to this social media shit, this toxic shit that's happening. I saw, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, right? That when the rioting just started, people were like, you know, for the movement, against the movement. Everybody's like frustrated and upset. So people are
Yeah.
like sensitive as fuck right now. And
Hmm.
and you commented on the writing. You called the people who are writing thugs delinquents, and
Yeah.
that got some people mad, because they thought that you were talking about black people, and
Yeah.
you got called out on like social media, and that shit was
Multiple
crazy. Like
times,
people
bro.
were
Multiple times.
yeah, people were adding you and shit like that. So I was like, damn, cause I've met you a couple of times in Syracuse, and you've always been cool,
Word,
chill
bro.
person. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity to like clear up what's been going on, like what you actually meant when you said thugs and delinquents,
Yeah.
because I understand that people are frustrated, people are mad, so you have to be
Yeah.
sensitive with what you say, and they may have
Facts.
just like taken you out of context.
Yeah. So like, yeah, this whole like temperature is, it feels like everything just went to like 100 degrees
Yeah.
plus like 30, you know? So, but everybody agrees, well, that like Floyd got murdered, right? Like there's no question. Like
Definitely.
people who don't agree, it's just insanity. But um where I disagree is with like the type of like protest that people do. So one of those was obviously like the rioting.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand people's position, like how they say like I understand where they're coming from. So they're like the whole system is rigged against us, like I understand that perspective. And I can see why some people would believe like this is the right move. However, I really don't like in this situation. I felt like it was doing a little bit way more harm than it actually did good. Like especially in their own. All right, so I've heard like a lot of reports. People who were looting weren't even from like Minnesota.
Yeah.
So they were just trashing the place, right? They were
Mm-hmm.
just, and I saw videos, going into Target. That's the first video I saw. And they were like taking stuff, like taking like money from the cash register, TVs and stuff like that. I'm like, this really has nothing to do with his death or like the movement in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like from like, and if that perspective is not what most people like see. Well, at least people that I know, especially like here in Georgia, they have different mentalities, right?
Right.
So like they're like, this is not a proper way to protest. You're just looting and stealing other people's stuff. And then as more like videos started coming out in like different places like New York City, Los Angeles, these people's little stores are broken into, like pawn shops, all of these being broken into, and then like clothing, food, stuff like that. Whereas, so like that I have a real issue with. And then I got a lot of slack for that. Like people were just like, oh, like kid you not, they're like, oh, you're a coon, you're a racist, like how dare you? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like this is borderline lawlessness. Like
Yeah.
this is borderline like crazy. Like there's right ways to do this in my opinion, and there's wrong ways to do it. And I got a lot of heat for that. It's understandable, but I support like peaceful protests, like all of those people that are protesting, like peacefully. I feel like that's the way you implement change. But a lot of people see like, rioting is the only option, which I understand their narrative. I definitely have a different perspective on it. That was that was one aspect of it, but yeah, a lot of stuff is happening right now, and like people are just like,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people don't know that we're all fighting the same thing. We just have different ways of going about it.
Right. Right. So,
Yeah.
people like rioting, looting, we all agree it's bad, it's a crime, it's against the law, and innocent,
Yeah.
business owners are being affected by it.
Yeah.
So
Of all races, of all types of colors,
yeah,
everybody.
exactly. Just to, get more context, are you saying that rioting, whatever, it's just bad in general? Because some people say they agree with you to an extent. They'll be like,
Right.
yes, we shouldn't attack these small businesses and community stores and things like that. But large franchise stores like Target, Macy's, they all have like insurance in place for things like this. So their businesses aren't harmed by the writing. And
Right.
also, in another sense, they're like, don't attack these small businesses, but attack these institutional businesses like precincts or government buildings because that's who they want to hear them if they feel as though writing is the only way.
Right.
Um, but back to this perspective, it's more so. I definitely agree that it's wrong. Writing, looting is bad, but I understand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like because they tried the peaceful protests, like even when minorities and all any actually even outside of minorities, anybody that protests, if they're protesting for Black lives or for a minority movement, regardless of the people in that protest, even if it starts off as peaceful,
Hmm.
sometimes the police try to instigate. They come in and they try to cause a riot, or they're already prepped for whatever for shit to go down.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
they're ready. Yeah.
yeah, that sometimes instigates riots.
Yeah.
Also, and you're definitely right. It's not just the protesters, or it's not only the protesters that are doing the rioting. They're scammers.
Yeah.
People see an opportunity. They see
And they go for it.
opportunities
Yeah.
to scam. They're gonna go in the movement, pretend to be protesters, and just riot and steal for their own good.
Yeah.
Even though you disagree with the writing and looting, I just want to know if you understand it to an extent, or understand why people feel like that's the only choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Like I think I understand how people see this because, truthfully, we've been taught that, our whole life. Like even in college, you think, how like all the protesters in like at SU, like all the demonstrations against minorities.
Yeah.
So like that's the worldview. I feel like it's all about the worldview, in my opinion. Um, and it's based on like all like the slavery, Jim Crow, like everything that's been leading up to this, right? So I understand people's viewpoint. However, where I come from is like I feel like I see it in a different lens, kind of. Whereas in right now in our time, I don't see the systemic white oppression that other people see.
Mm.
And people are gonna be like, oh, it's because because you're white, whatever, you're whatever, whatever. But I tend to like view things more on like, okay, what's actually happening? Because like the media and like, I'm gonna tell you, the media and like our education system, like they do have like, how do I say this? Um, they do have a lens by which they're trying to like get people to see. That's my opinion, right?
Mm.
Like, so like the media shows you a lot of the riots, but they like barely show you like any of the peaceful protests, right?
Correct.
Or like it's like stuff like that. Like they pick and choose what they want to disseminate to the masses, which like it's like psychology, right? Like conditioning. Like I don't know if you took psychology, but it's like with the dog and like you have a clicker, and the dog salivates because it knows it's gonna get food.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my mentality. How like the media kind of like has pure like spewed into like our society like this culture of like division basically, and like and this whole it is all started with like police brutality, right? And we can all agree like police brutality is just horrific, like in any sense. But like there's just a lot of things that I've just come to like through my own like research and like what's the actual truth, like let me find this for myself because something ain't ended up in this. So yeah, that was kind of like my worldview, but yeah, I could go into it in more detail if you like, but I
Okay.
think I don't know if I answered the question. To be
I
honest.
think I sort of understand what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying that from your perspective, like just from what you've seen and through your upbringings, that the media, when it comes to race in America or race in the world, it's yes, you recognize that it's bad. However, it's not as large as people or the media make it seem.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And especially since I've looked at like research studies, like specifically on like police brutality and like speeding tickets and stuff like that. And personally, I've come to the conclusion that a lot of what the media is telling us is just a bunch of lies. Like honestly, it really is. It's mad scary to be honest. But yeah, a lot of and like with the amount of people that were stopped or like were shot in like 2018, 2019, who were unarmed, like a fraction of those were black people, you know? And then like I find it really disingenuous when they say like when people are like, oh, black people are being hunted down now as they did like 200 years ago, which personally I don't think that's the case at this point. Um, but like I feel like the media is just using that like, and every time it's like the media just focuses on like a white cop killing a black African American. But there's so many instances where like a black cop kills like a white person or a white cop kills a white person or you know what I'm saying? Like a black cop kills a black person. Like it's like strategically they're putting a white cop with a black person. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So like I've been seeing that over and over again, and yeah, like something just really doesn't add up, you know. And then when I look at the statistics based on like the FBI and I don't know if it was like the Washington Post or something like that, but they had like a whole data archive of like police shootings, police brutality and all this stuff. Um, and like the numbers are just like they're insane. like the like more police are killing white people than black people, and more police are more hesitant to shoot on an unarmed black person than an unarmed white person.
Mm.
And it just keeps spiraling on and on. And like speeding tickets, there was like a study in New Jersey where like how like a bunch of like African Americans and Hispanic Americans were being stopped for speeding tickets disproportionately to like white people. But like the study conducted that like it was because like they were actually speeding. Like you know, it wasn't based because of like racial bias.
Mm.
It was based because the vehicle was actually speeding above the limit, you know?
Okay.
And like just like stuff like that, in my opinion.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I learned to stop just listening to people telling me stuff and actually like fact check everything and make sure make sure like people are telling the truth. Because I don't know if you like looked about like the Jesse Smollett case, right? Like the media was like so on like, oh, he was like racist people like try to attack him, blah blah, and it was all fake. Like it was all staged. Like
Yeah.
and like so many people in the media and like especially people like who don't like really research like in the public were like so sold on that, you know, when it was like really a lie. So I'm like, what else are they like really lying about? What else like you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Okay. And but living in Georgia, have you lived in Georgia your whole life?
No. I lived in Westchester.
Okay.
But my family, like my aunt and my uncles, they moved here like years ago. So I would come during like middle school, like 6th, 7th, 8th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and come visit them for the summer, you know. They still live in the same place they lived before, so but like my parents recently moved here like 2 years ago and I'm just here. I just
That's
moved
it.
here, so
That's it. Okay.
so it's dope.
That's dope. That's dope. Now, I respect everything that you just said in terms of,
Mhm.
doing your research and some of the inaccurate reports that you've seen
Mhm.
and things like that. But I think that where I'm gonna have to disagree is that because
Right.
racism in America has been prevalent since the jump, right? Since the beginning, we've all seen it over the years, and it's not so long ago where the civil rights movement era was happening, and people were just fighting for equality in terms of
Yeah.
hey, we're just equal. And you mentioned
Yeah.
Jim Crow laws, the 3/5, and all that, which has sparked to this, and use that to say that that's the reason why people think it's bigger than what it is, but
Mhm.
it's not, right? But when there are cases, like how many cases would you say is too much or two, like how many cases would you say is, oh, three, like how many killings do
For
you
what?
think a
Oh,
like
like
police brutality
at
cases
the hands
are?
of police brutality, like bro, just one is too many, bro. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
That's yeah, exactly. That one is too
yeah,
many, and
way too many.
way too many. And when you mentioned that, more white people may be getting arrested or more white people may be getting killed by police than black people, that makes sense because white people are the majority in the country.
Majority
The
population, yeah.
majority. Black people are the minority. It's the
Yeah,
disproportionate way in which black people are getting targeted, not only
yeah,
for the jail system in terms of
mm,
the variation between a white person convicted for a certain crime and a black
yeah,
person convicted for a certain crime. So
right,
when you look at these cases, you have to look at it through a disproportionate standpoint because
yeah,
they're a minority. And
yeah,
with these cases in terms of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and with
mm,
George Floyd, who sparked everything
yeah,
throughout each of those times. And there's several examples throughout the years that aren't even reported. Those are just the ones we've seen like on camera.
yeah,
Ahmaud Arbery, the people who recorded that tape were the people who were culpable in the murder. If they didn't report that tape, if they didn't record the tape, they would have gotten away with it scot free, scot
yeah,
free. Like even with the tape, when a police officer who investigated the crime believed their story, or he told their story to their mother like hours later. He knocked on the door and said, "Your son was shot because he broke into a house. It was an incident," and that's all she said. All they said.
mm,
And it wasn't
mm,
until that tape came out and weeks later that she found out that, oh wait, my son wasn't killed for committing a crime. He was just killed for being black because he was just jogging. Was just in her house with her boyfriend, I think. And the police came in to the wrong house, and then they shot her. The boyfriend, he had with his legal permitted gun. He was defending his house. He didn't know what was happening. He shot a cop, but he's getting charged for the murder of his own girlfriend. So
right,
I think I do see and I do understand why there are rioting because there's always these protests, and these protests don't happen as soon as a person of color is shot or there's some abuse done to them. It happens after there are several cases, and people just get fed up, right?
mm,
And especially with police brutality, there are so many cases that aren't reported. You know what I mean? Like
right,
so many. It takes a lot for a case to be reported, and it takes even more for it to be caught on camera and it go viral.
right,
So I just want to like unpack in terms of the Jesse Smollett case, right? Yeah, of course, completely understand. The media ate that shit up because it was hot, right? And he
yeah.
was just lying the whole time. He was
I
just
mean, yeah, yeah, I agree. Like this has a lot. Like me and my cousins were actually talking. We're like, this has a lot. Like whether people like believe it or not, this has a lot to do, literally, with politics. Believe it or not, like this has a lot to do with it. So I'm gonna go back to what you talked about. Because I was actually concerned about like the Breonna Taylor case as well. But like I'm like, because that just sounds flat out like that's just like straight up like police brutality. That's police racism. But like once you look into it, Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend were both what was it called? Distributing, like dealing drugs, right? Like massive amounts of drugs apparently. So I mean that I think I don't know the specific area because I didn't really like research into it, but like her boyfriend was like a drug dealer in that area, and so apparently there was something going on there. So, but I don't like, and apparently like she was in the crossfires apparently. So like it's either so what I've heard is like either the boyfriend and the police were shooting at each other and she was in the middle, or something like that happened. And then in Aubrey's case, it's just like because it happened in Georgia, right? So it's just like, crazy. But so that's like a huge different like huge like case. It's like it has a lot of parts to it, and honestly, I don't even know like how they're gonna do it. But I want to point back to another case which like started like Black Lives Matter, right? It was like Mike Brown. Like you remember that, right?
Yeah.
And like how the police officer wasn't charged with like anything, right? But like it was because Mike Brown was actually, I don't know if he was like robbing, like if he before he like died, he robbed like either a gas station or a corner store, and he got into I don't know if it was a fist, like I don't know if it was like a struggle with the cop, but apparently he reached for the cop's gun, and then he came back and tried to charge at the cop. So that's why like the officer wasn't charged, and I kind of believe that because there were also like other eyewitnesses like in that area who saw the whole thing happen, and that's why that police officer didn't like go to jail. Or like the same thing that happened in like Baltimore. I forgot what's his name. The guy that died in the back of the cop car. What was his name? What was his name? Well, okay. Well, anyways, the media was like, "Oh, this is like police brutality." It was like racism, but like almost all the cops there were black, like almost all of them. And he died. And I don't think were they charged. I don't think they were charged with murder.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
think there's one misconception that you're making. It's associating police brutality with racism, right? When we're speaking
Yeah.
about racism, like just are you do you believe that racism is something that is systematic?
I believe that it's an ideology. Like it's a method of thinking, and completely eliminating it, I don't think anybody will, because it's in the individual level. Now, systematically, um, the only way that it could be like systematically is if it was through like actual policy that like stop and frisk.
Yeah.
Like that was like, like apparently a terrible like policy, so like they removed it. But I don't believe like white like this type of racism like is just in the air you breathe, in the system that we breathe. Like I don't believe that personally.
So so besides like laws like stop and frisk that try to go out but was canceled by protests,
Yeah.
by the green card law where cops in Arizona could just stop any Latino person that they thought was an illegal immigrant and ask for their green card. Besides like laws that are obvious, then you wouldn't say there's like any systematic racism.
Like right now?
Yes.
Oh, can you repeat that again?
I'm saying like besides like those laws like stop and frisk, the green card law in Arizona, you wouldn't say that like in 2020 there's like systematic racism in existence.
But like 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 can you specific like can you give me like a specific, like you mean like in education,
I mean
in like
like
hospital, and like or is it
like
like in every single sector, in every like industry, it's there, like it's actively like taking place?
I mean
Or can you
like
pinpoint to like specific like government, like is it housing, grocery, like what part of it?
well
Like banking?
if speaking on the police department as a system,
Okay.
right? Let's say the police department, the justice system, and all of the above, right? So back to the Ahmad Aubrey case as an example. He's jogging. People think that he's a burglar. They do a citizen's arrest and end up killing him with a shotgun, right? And one of them is an ex-cop. Therefore, he has connections to the police academy. And although he just committed a murder, flat out, right? Under the system, fairly, you should get charged, you should get arrested, you should go through trial to determine whether or not you will get a conviction. That's a regular systematic process. However, where the systematic racism exists is when the police did not do that, the police academy did not do that, right? They told his mom that he actually did commit a crime and that's why he was arrested. And then after the video went out and it went viral, the case got sent to the district attorney. the district attorney did not persecute, or he waited a very long time to even look at the case, right?
Mhm.
And if it wasn't for the pressure that people had online through social media, nothing would have really happened.
Right.
Another example, George Floyd, which is more recent, as we've seen, right? There's clear video footage of a cop stopping the circulation and his breathing. They said that he was resisting arrest. Footage came out that he was not, in fact, resisting arrest. And although the video evidence is clear, and the cop should, under the system, regardless of whether you're a cop or a governor, whatever the case, you commit a murder, you should be arrested and charged and go through trial to see whether or not you get convicted, as well as anybody else that's culpable in your murder. However, under the system, they did not charge those cops, and even with that video evidence, until people started protesting, and they didn't arrest him until people started rioting, right? And prior to the protesting, they sent the National Guard in order to protect this cop, as they should. They should protect all lives, regardless of whatever conviction you have. But the system, when people say or speak of systematic racism, it's not necessarily that there are specific laws, other than on occasion, right? Like with stop and frisk, that are meant to oppress or go after a certain community. It's that the
Right.
people who are in power, right? These judges that convict have this disparities between convictions between people of color and white people, and so on. It's the people in power that make it systematic, right? It's the people in the top. So it's not the laws. The laws are just like if I'm looking at the laws, and if I'm looking at analytics that's just paper that's written by who knows who, right? Because the people in power are the one who come up with these statistics, and it's not all cases of police brutality are said. There's police brutality is an ongoing issue for a reason. All 50 states and the world are protesting for a reason. It's not because it's exaggerated or anything like that. It's there, and systematic racism shouldn't be seen as like something that's in the laws or like in every institution. Like if I'm a teacher and I get fired, shit, that's systematic racism. No, that's not what we mean at all. It's just the people in power have a bias, and that bias is spread out everywhere.
Yeah.
For example, if someone has, let's say, if someone has done the same research you've done, and they have the same mindset you have, right? And they don't have any camera footage of Ahmaud Arbery's murder. So the story is, we saw this guy who was doing something suspicious. We chased him down. He tried to fight us, and we shot him in self-defense. And then the cop says the same thing, right? Although there may be some witnesses that disagree, that's the story the precinct rolled out with. If you're the DA, the district attorney, just looking at that paper with those facts, you're like, oh, why would I believe, as a person who doesn't believe in systematic racism, why would I believe that there's anything at play or at foul here?
Yeah.
And I think that mindset can lead to some wrongful convictions.
Yeah, I agree. In like Ahmaud Arbery's case, I personally believe it's just gonna come down to like who had the right self-defense and who shot the trigger. Because I read like the pathologists who were doing autopsy and who were doing the fingerprints, and they can't decide on like who shot the first shot. Like they can't decide whether it was, because in the video you saw Ahmaud Arbery like grab the gun as well, and they were just wrestling with it, and then they went out of frame, and they heard the shot. So like in that case, it's gonna be like who fired that first shot to do it. And then also I do believe it was like a form of corruption as well. But like the father, he worked in like the DA's office, so he was a police officer in that area for like years,
He was
like
an
30
ex-cop.
years. Yeah. So I do believe like yeah, that's like a big no-no, you know, like hold on. But I said, wait, and that was like a big no-no, right? But I'm just interested to see like, oh, and also like what was it called, the lawyer, was it the lawyer, the person? Apparently, I don't know who it was, but apparently it was like it went through like two people like who were subject to that case to like investigate. Two people had to remove themselves because they were affiliated with the father. So it went through like two different people, and then it stopped on this other lady. Like right now is with this third person, who has no connection to the father. But I do believe that if he wasn't, you know, a part of the DAs or he wasn't a part of like the police force, they probably would have like, I don't know, this is my opinion, probably would have seen like, okay, this might be a murder, this might not be. I don't know. That would have been interesting to see. What was the other case? Oh, Mike. Like I don't know. Like they I think that he's just gonna get charged with murder. The other three cops, I don't know what kind of like charge they're gonna do. Like I don't know. But I'm also like kind of hesitant because the whole, you know, the Trayvon Martin case.
Yes.
You know how like Mark Zimmerman got like he didn't get charged either.
Yep.
A lot of people like who I've been seeing said that he didn't get charged because they overcharged. They put in overcharging. Like they put murder, and he was able to fight that. Like they I don't know what type of murder was it. First degree? I don't know.
Yeah, the higher the degree, the harder it is to prove.
Yeah. So and he had like, and his defendants had like reason, like had ammunition to defend him. So and I was reading like or was looking at a video of a former police officer. He said if Zimmerman was charged with manslaughter instead of like first degree or whatever degree, he would have been in jail right now. So that's another, like, yes, both sides of the coin here. Like we have to be, I believe like people have to be careful of like how they charge certain people, because if you overcharge somebody, they're gonna fight that and they're gonna win, and it's just gonna cause like mass, like even more hysteria, like even more division or more like, you know, rioting. But I think in George Floyd's case, they bumped it up to like second degree murder.
Yes.
Yeah, so but I think he's gonna get convicted anyways.
Okay.
But yeah, it might just be harder.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you I'm curious to know like your perspective on not just racism in the Black community, but racism in the Latino community, right? Not sure what's your ethnicity, if you don't mind me asking.
Oh, Mexican.
Mexican. Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, yeah, in terms of your thoughts, because systematic racism doesn't just apply to Black people; it applies to people in the Latino community, and you know, especially with Mexicans in terms of the whole immigration laws and in terms of and we've seen that especially evident in the first 2 years of Trump's administration with the whole illegal immigrants, kids in cages, separating people from families and things like
Right.
That's also part of, you know, systematic racism, and that's the more so obvious one because people are acting on it and officials.
Right.
From your experience, you know, have you dealt with that?
Have I what?
Have you ever dealt with like racism of any sort because of your ethnicity?
Not that I'm aware of. Like, I mean, only like I guess like it was in school, you know, like, you know, they call you like wetback region, but like
Yeah.
that was like, it was weird because I went to school in like South Carolina and then I went to school in like, New York, right? So
Yeah.
I went to like both sides, but like it was the same. Like I've been called, like the only like derogatory word I've been called was like wetback. That's from like other Mexicans, like white people and Black people. So like
Okay.
it was like a mix of everybody. So, you know,
Yeah.
like even when I moved to another, like I never heard anybody say anything derogatory like in like New York, but that's because like I kept to myself and not really. But I wasn't down south. It was like mostly everybody. So it was interesting. And then in terms of like immigration, that's just a whole crazy topic. But um, like I do believe that I'm about to be an American citizen soon. Like I basically grew up in the United States my whole life.
Congrats.
But I do see a need for like protecting our borders. Not because because like a lot of people who do cross into our country do not have good intentions. A lot of them do. Like a lot of them just want to start over. A lot of them just want to like build families. But a lot of people are using this like as a mechanism for like sex trafficking, for, like all sorts of stuff, like
Right.
so I'm in favor of like building like I personally like am in favor of building the wall. But I'm also in favor of like having a more efficient like citizenship process, or like and like refugee process, like people shouldn't wait for like 10 years or like 5 years or however long it is, right?
Okay.
But I do believe in like our border security, and then also this whole immigration thing. Like I've noticed that it picked up like when Trump got in office, but like deportations were happening under Obama, and like Obama also had people in cages as well, and like Obama also like spoke about like if you come here illegally, you will be deported. So like it's like the same rhetoric, but like it's a completely different like response, and there's videos of Obama saying all this stuff, like, and there's like photo evidence of like people were still in cages under Obama. So, and this is just like, I mean, I kind of like agree with like Obama and Trump. Like, if you're like, you wouldn't allow somebody into your house privately that you didn't know, right? That you couldn't like verify who they were. It's the same thing with our country. I feel like a lot of people bring in like kids, but they're not really their kids. And there's no verification. Like, how do you know like this is your kid for real? Like, how are like agents and like the government gonna know that you're not using these kids as like just sex trafficking? Like, we don't know that. We don't know what you're gonna do with these kids. We don't know if you're gonna like kidnap them or dispose of them over here. Like there's a bunch of stuff like people don't really realize, and they just see it. In my opinion, they see it as like you're oppressing these people from coming in, but like there's so many avenues, so many complexities happening, and then like in California, like certain like if there's like no, because like California is right near the border, and there's a bunch of stories of like American families, like American citizens dying, at the hands of like really corrupt criminal like illegal immigrants who come into the country, like there was a story of like this man who like shot this like 17-year-old girl who was an illegal immigrant, and then there was another one where like an illegal immigrant ran over like this lady and her son, stuff like that. So like I'm for like defending like American people first, and like making sure like people like American citizens are being taken care of first, and then like make sure we regulate who we bring in and make sure we verify who, because I'm not trying to bring like a lot of people who come to the border are related to gangs. A lot of people who come like are just looking for like a better opportunity, but we have to have a better screening process, a better verification process, and all of that. And yeah, we got to slow it down. Personally, in my opinion, we got to slow the influx, because like especially people at the border, like in Texas and California, and like I don't know if it's Nevada, like or wherever the border is, they're like there is like a huge influx of people coming, and like it's becoming overwhelming, So I believe like we need to like control that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said in terms of so I'll just take it one step at a time. In terms, but most recently, I'd just like to point out you mentioned some of the research you just did in terms of some of the negative things that illegal immigrants have done, like these red reports. Wouldn't you agree, or just like the same way that you mentioned that the media or some articles will emphasize activities of a certain group or a certain agenda for the black movement or racism, they would so for also the other side, in terms of the people who agree with you, would sell for also illegal immigrants. Because although yes, there are some criminals that do come into the border that have do have gang activity, I would say that the majority are just people looking for a better life, especially when it comes to um, what they're getting away from or what they're trying to achieve in America. And you mentioned that you're for building a wall. Um, I don't know. Do you mean like literally or metaphorically in terms of advocating for increased security and in our immigration system? Because building a wall hasn't really worked. People get around that, and
Yeah,
yeah, it seems like just a waste of money.
yeah. I mean, I'm for like first the border wall and also like heightened security, like surveillance. Like mechanisms like infrared mechanisms, equipment, to detect people that are coming in lawfully and unlawfully.
Mm.
And I don't know how like advantageous it is or not, but I mean like China built a huge wall of China, and I don't think they did it for like pleasure purposes. I think it was to like keep like intruders out of their country. So, and then Japan like closed their whole borders off from like, the rest of the world, to focus on themselves. So I mean, like it's been happening in like other parts of the world as well. So um, I also think it's time for like Americans to start like taking care of our own people first. So, but yeah, like I support like a border wall and also like heightened security as well.
Right.
My
Yeah,
opinion, yeah.
yeah, I respect that opinion. And speaking of like identity, you know,
Right.
just for me, growing up, I was also teased like in school because of my African heritage. I was born in Mozambique. I came to America, to New York City when I was 7. Been here ever since.
Wow.
Became an American citizen and everything. But growing up,
Nice.
I struggled with my identity because I
Identity.
grew up in a Dominican neighborhood. Most of my best friends are Dominican. But
Right.
growing up and being like the only black kid or the only African in a Dominican
Yeah.
neighborhood, it was rough. And
Right.
it wasn't until high school that I really like, because my high school is very diverse. So the first day I saw the diversity, people were repping their flags, repping their culture, and that's when I realized that I had the strength to do that as well. So
Yeah.
that was something that was very important to me. And I just want to ask you about your identity. Like, what do you more so identify as, or what do you feel more closely to? Because a huge part of the reason why it was hard for me is because I was raised in America, so it was hard. It took some time for me to recognize my roots, and not only recognize it but also identify with it. Like I'm
Yeah.
Mozambican American.
Yeah.
With your Mexican heritage, did you have the same struggle, or do you?
Yeah. So I was here for the most part, like most of my life. I was an illegal immigrant, so all
Mm.
my family have been like for the most part, and like little stories, people being deported and stuff like that. Like I grew to really resent America, which is weird because I'm in a totally different place right now.
Yeah.
But like I used to always be like I'm Mexican first, But I like going through college and going through all of this, like all these opportunities, like being a resident now, like all the opportunities that we have in this country, like I'm starting to like appreciate more the fact, like okay, like like I am an American because like I lived here my whole entire life, so but I will always like have Mexico in my blood. So it's like a love for both now, like instead of like a hatred. Because before that, like in middle school, and like because I don't know if one of my uncles got deported, but like I used to like really resent like this country for that. And I'm like, all right, I'm Mexican, whatever. Like, but now as I've grown up, now as I've gone through like college and like seen really like America for what it is, the good and the bad. Like, I am proud to be like I am a Mexican American. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, there's like two parts of me. Like, but it's me. Like it makes me who I am. Like, I wouldn't be the same without America, and I wouldn't be the same without like, my Mexican heritage. So like I've grown to like really like love both of them together. That's where I am right now. Like
Yeah.
not one over the other. It's more like I love being like Mexican culture. I love everything about being Mexican, but I also love I love everything about being American. You know, the whole freedom thing, like, you know, the right of the people. Like, we run government, not that the government runs us. You know,
Mm.
like we can like bear arms, like we can have guns, like we can protect our family. You know, if stuff like hits the fan, you know, like
Mm.
we have our freedom. We can say whatever we want. We don't have to fear like, you know, government coming after us. You know, knocking on our doors and be like, yo, you can't say this on social media. You can't say this like out in public. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I feel you. I feel you. It's interesting though. So coming into America as an illegal immigrant, and then going through basically the American dream, like what people hope for when they come into this country illegally. At least the good people, or the majority.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they're hoping for exactly some of what you've lived through. Like come in illegally, but earn sort of your place in America by living
Yeah.
lawfully. You attend the schools, you become a resident, you go through the system, you
Yeah.
experience college, right? And I'm sure that's something that your parents were very proud of, especially Syracuse.
Yeah.
It's a lit school, and
Yeah.
and now you basically get your own vision and viewpoint of America. And I gotta say this because the people watching will definitely think this. Isn't it sort of hypocritical to say that we should build a wall, and some, point out that a lot of the people in your perspective, that are illegal immigrants coming in are here to do bad things, when you yourself went through that system, and you came out great, and you're about to be a citizen.
Um. Well, I can see how it is, but again, like I was born like I was raised like traditional, you know, like respect, like you know, elder respect, whatever, respect like the rules of my household that my mom displayed. Like, if you take out the trash, you gotta take out the trash. Like, there's no argument, you know. Um, but in terms of that, I still believe that you need to protect your household. You need to protect, you know, like your people first. Like you lock your doors every night. You know why? To protect the people inside. You know, and to keep people out. You know, who may want to cause harm. Now you don't want people to come in, but like there are people who want to like rob your house, so you got to protect. You know,
Yeah.
and I just feel like it's the same way. I've grown up. I understand like and becoming a citizen, I understand why, you know, border security and like having this wall is so important because we have to protect America. You know, we have to like have a door and like allow people to come in, but like make sure people like who do have these good intentions come in. Um, and then what? Yeah, I think that's a I think that answered that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, it did.
Did I answer it? Yeah,
It did. Okay.
yeah. But I also believe like the government is too freaking slow, man. Like these like it needs to like be more efficient processes of screening people, of making sure like they're wholesome people, you know. But that's really tricky when you come over the border with like no paperwork, no nothing, you know, like just a shirt on your back. You know, it's very difficult to distinguish like someone's intentions. You know, it's very hard. Um, and so, but I do believe like, you know, the whole DACA. I believe like kids should like have an easier pathway to citizenship. You know, who've been here, especially illegal immigrants now who have been here for like 12 years, who've gone to school, like getting a job. Like they should have a pathway to citizenship. You know, like DACA students or like refugees, like they should have a pathway to citizenship. You know, like it should be like more efficient. But I do believe like the government is just way too slow for this. You know, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've been talking to, I'm friends with a lot of people in the Latino community. I had one of my best friends, Maria. She's a Mexican, and she was talking about, we got into a conversation about colorism in both our communities, and also and she spoke about it in the Latino community, and she spoke about like I think she said whitexicans. It was funny because I never heard that term before until her. She spoke of like some people who see themselves as whitexicans, who don't identify as strongly with their Mexican roots, more than to their white, or they take advantage of their skin color in order to exercise the privilege that comes with it, and justify their view of the world. And then she spoke about one of my friends, best friends, good friends, Joanna. She's a Dominican. She spoke about colorism in her family because she's Dominican, but she has a lighter skin tone. but she also has curly hair. So like growing up, her parents, her family would be like, "Oh, straighten your hair because it's prettier that way." Obviously, because of the stigma that comes with having curly hair. And it wasn't until curly hair became like a fashion trend that it was more acceptable for her family to allow her or let her have curly hair in peace, right?
Mhm.
Have you experienced or seen any like colorism in in your family or like in your community?
Um, not that I've been aware of.
Mm.
Um, like no, because I've had like darker skinned Mexican friends, lighter skinned Mexican friends. But they don't really see themselves like, oh, I'm dark skinned. They're just like, I'm Mexican. Like I'm
Yeah.
Mexican. Like what of it? Like you know what I'm saying? Like we're yeah, like you know, like well, why like, and they were like, yeah, I'm darker skinned than you, but like why is all that like focused on my skin, on my color?
Right.
I'm Mexican. Like we eat tacos, bro. Like
Yeah.
we have like sombreros, bro. Like who cares about my skin color? You know, like
Yeah.
and but I've never seen that, you know. Um, and then my mom also has curly hair. She's never been slacked about it. Like she wears it like, you know, like she has wavy curly hair. My sister also. Sometimes she straightens it, sometimes she curls it. Like we don't really, I don't know, like we never really had an objection either or, you know. Like
Yeah.
I guess where I grew up, my mom was really like, it doesn't matter like if they're, it doesn't matter the skin. Like it matters like who you are as a person. Like are you humble before people? Like are you respectable? Like do
Yeah.
you know do you serve these people? Like are you kind hearted? Like you know, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter like if they're shorter than you, taller than you, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
But
Definitely.
yeah, I've never, I haven't really like, maybe I'm blind, you know, but like I haven't really like, especially my encounters, I haven't really picked that up within like the Mexican community. Like we have beef, but like it's not because oh you're whiter than me. Like no, it's like we usually call each other out based on like oh you made a stupid decision, like you know, like you know what I'm saying, like stuff like that. That it, like from my view, from like
Yeah.
what I've experienced in life.
Yeah, man. Yeah, your experiences seem to be really positive, and that's a good thing, man. That's something that I wish was like in every community, just like a positive experience in terms of colorism in your community, racism. You haven't experienced much racism either, which is
You
great.
know?
Do you think that, or what do you think of one white privilege? Because you mentioned that systematic racism is like more of like an ideology. Is that the
It's like a
same?
theory. It's
Right.
like
Is
I mean
that
personally, I think it's just a bunch of BS to be honest with you. Like,
mm,
if white privilege really existed, how come like there's pockets of like really well like middle income like black families, there's wealthy black families, like the population who's the wealthiest in this country are actually Indian Americans, Chinese Americans, Muslim Americans. Um, so I'm like, if there's really like there's a bunch of white people who are poor, so I'm like, this really doesn't add up. Like, white supremacy means like white people are on top in everything. Like, that was the truth like back then, but like in like 2020 right now, I don't see it that way. Like, that's not my peripheral view. Is like that's not what I'm seeing. And I live in Covington, and it's predominantly black. So, and I live in a trailer home, and it's mostly Mexicans. And right next door is like middle class upper household, and it was all full of black people. And I'm just like I don't really see this. Like, and you go to like North Atlanta, like in those suburbs, there's wealthy people, white, black, Indian, Asian. I'm like, if this is actually white supremacy, why aren't all these people just white? You know?
right?
Um.
Yeah,
So I
and
don't know. Like, I'm just like, this is not clicking with me. Especially like what I'm seeing. This is not what's happening in like what I'm seeing. Like, just not like and like all these people are like successful. Like they're nurses, they're entrepreneurs and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, so this is how these people are wealthy, not because like their skin, but because like their parents have done something or their parents are doing something right now, or like they signed to a record label or they bought off like investment stocks and like they're growing their wealth and like they moved to these upper income households. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
so yeah, I don't really believe today in this age now. I don't think, in my opinion. But
So like from
I
your, uh-huh.
no, I keep going.
Okay, from your perspective, white privilege is sort of equivalent to wealth, sort of like it's judged by wealth in terms of, oh, there can't be white privilege because I've seen people in the black community that are wealthy and are successful, and I've seen people in the white community that are poor and not
And
successful.
vice versa. Yeah, and vice versa too. Like, you know, but yeah, like that's predominantly why I'm like, okay, like if we are living in a systemically racist, white supremacist society, and once you come into it, no matter where you come from, like Asia, Africa, Europe, or not Europe, but like Middle East, South America, even if you come into it, you automatically are oppressed. You automatically will not make as more wealth as another person. But like, even if you are, let's say, rich from like China or something, you come in, like, automatically you are being like systemically depressed. But like I feel like that's just that I don't know, because there's a lot of stories of people who are in poverty of all ages, who have built a business, built a firm, done all these things, and climbed up the wealth ladder.
Mm.
Like it all had to do with like what they were doing. They blogged and they started making like thousands of dollars on their blogs. Like,
Yeah.
people don't think, oh, you're black, I'm not gonna follow. No, you have good content, and then you're raising your income level. So that's how you're getting out of poverty. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm not seeing this as a race kind of spectrum. It's more like on an accountability type. Like, what are you doing to increase your earning potential?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I understand your point, although I disagree with it.
Mhm.
Just from what I've learned, I don't know if you've taken in Syracuse, some AA classes, some African American study classes. I think they also
Mhm.
cover this in some
I
psychology
took some
classes.
I took a sociology 101 course.
Yeah, not but in some psychology classes, or one of the classes I took in some AA classes, they talk about exactly this misconception in terms of,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, I don't fully buy into white privilege, the idea of it, because I've seen success. I've seen success in the black community and with immigrants, and I've seen poor white people. But that's not what white privilege is. That's not the extent of white privilege. Like what you're speaking of is just capitalism. Like America is a capitalist country. It's made
Yeah.
for if building businesses and trying to be successful and growing up in a poor community, but getting a scholarship if you're smart enough, going to an established
Yeah.
school, and then getting a degree, and then starting a job and things like that. But what white privilege is, I'm not going to explain to the extent of it. I think that that's something that anyone should just do some research on their own. But just like for my own little thing, the extent of white privilege can just be as simple as I got caught with some weed. White person gets caught. I'm a teenager. Black teenager gets caught with some weed. White teenager gets caught with that same weed. uh, he gets off with a warning. The white kid gets off with a warning. I'm arrested and tried as an adult. That's an example of white privilege. Another example, I don't know if you're familiar. It's a old psychology test. There's two resumes, one with a white sounding name, quote unquote, and then one with a black sounding name. Same exact resume, and then a larger percentage of the times the one with the whiter signing name got picked first. That's an example of white privilege. And there are several other examples. It can be from something that's very subtle to something that's very extreme. For example, buying a house. In terms of, I don't know if you're familiar with the term white flight. If if a black person moves or is trying to buy a house in a certain neighborhood, they might not get sold that house because of neighbors that might be uncomfortable of them living in that neighborhood. Or if too many black people move into a neighborhood, the term white flight means that white people would just move away because they don't want to be around black people or people of color for whatever reason. Those are all examples of like white privilege and just like race in general. But
But are there cases of it? Like, are there like reports of it, like specific examples of it? Because to me, like that sounds good, but like to me, that's still theory unless there's actual like, has there been a case? You know, but all right. So in terms of housing, like I don't know, like has there been a specific like highlight on that? Like, was there a report, police
yeah,
report? Like,
all of these. I mean, no one's gonna
you
call
know,
the cops if someone doesn't buy them a house, right? But all of these have been cases that have been researched and studied through psychology terms. That there are enough cases and evidence of white privilege on really just all spectrums, and
yeah,
you just gotta do the research. Like the same energy that you put in terms of into finding out, like police brutality case. Let me look further into it because I'm not gonna buy into what the media says, right? You
mm,
gotta do this. You gotta have the same energy for your counter argument because your own bias can give you energy and give you a certain perspective for one thing, but you won't
yeah,
have
exactly,
that same energy for another thing. And
yeah,
that's if you're ready, like I love the fact that you're being honest and that you're not scared to hide your argument because we're having a respectful conversation, and
yeah,
I'm just saying, like I'm just advising to have the same energy for this other thing because white privilege does exist. Enough white people have even said it. Enough white people have even recognized that white privilege exists, and it just doesn't extend just to white people. It extends to skin color, lighter skin tones. In movie castings, minority people with lighter skin tones are cast a lot more than darker skin tones and things of that nature. It just there's so many. It's so layered. Even with movie casting for Michael Jackson, they were gonna cast a white male. Like it's small things, it's big things. It exists really anywhere.
yeah.
But but yeah, man, what I'm hoping just to come out of this conversation is just like a deeper understanding because I'm not gonna try to like change your viewpoints and vice
Nah,
versa,
nothing.
right?
Yeah,
We're
same.
just talking. I just wanted to understand your perspective, and I learned some new things, man.
Mm,
But let's get off this like heavy race debate. I wanna know
facts.
a little bit about you in terms of like how was your Q's experience like? Did you love Q's? Did you wish that some things were a little bit different, or were you like happy? And what was quarantine like for you? Like graduating under quarantine? That must have been. I know you
So
saw the
Cuse was
memes.
cool. Yeah, so Cuse was cool, man. Like it opened my eyes to like you. College really does open your eyes to the world.
Yeah.
Like everybody's there. You know, from people from like driving Lamborghinis. You know, it's like people just like backpacking and walking through the snow. Like I
Yeah.
broke. You know, you see different ethnicities, religions, everything. So it was a great experience. And then seeing everybody's like encouraging one another and stuff like that. Like it was really eye opening. And then also all the activism was awesome. Even though like at the end I'm like, okay, there's something off, but just that enthusiasm, to like be engaged and stuff, and to like learn and to like help one another, it was cool. Um, but yeah, I was not fond of the snow. Another thing is, I don't know. Kind of wish there was like a little bit more in terms of like the academics. I don't know, a little bit more rigor. I don't know, more flexibility. Like all these I feel like it should be more learn about a little bit about everything. Like learning about finance, learning about like how to like start a business, which is like like that should be an option for everybody like in all schools. Learn a
Yeah.
little bit about like humanities, like African American studies, social justice issues. Um, but yeah, like I found that part to be a little lacking. And then just like open dialogue with a lot of people. A lot of people that I hung out with just had like different type of mentality, the different type of like reasoning, which is great. But like I'm like, okay, so I wish there was just like what we're having right now. I wish there was like a lot of that. like all the time, like everywhere. You know, instead of always just going to the quad, like, you know, smoking a scythe, whatever, or just like turning up, whatever, you know, which is cool. But like I wish there was places where we could just engage, you know, like, yeah, you know, engage about life.
That's
like, what do you
why
believe, whatever, stuff like that, you know, like that's why I think like I was kind of disappointed in it, because it was more like people like drilling into your brain, kind of like, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, instead of like, this is what you need to do, but let's talk about it. Like, let's have discussion. Like, what do you think? What do I think? You know, as future leaders of this country, like of the world, like we should do that. You know, like, and inspire like more open discussions about like everything. You know, don't be afraid. You know, to be heard. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I forgot to ask, man. Why aren't you, I guess, afraid to say some of these like controversial viewpoints? Because I know, like, you know, just from that one post with thugs and things like that, some of your friends, you know, called you out, and you weren't, like I said, you weren't scared. You were there for it. So yeah, is it because you believe in this open dialogue and things like that?
Yeah, because I believe, like, you know, that's what college was actually like built on. Like, what was it like? I don't know. It was like in Greece, ancient Greece, like Athens, like they set up these institutions to like have dialogue, discourse. And what I've experienced in college is more like not really people wanting to have discourse, like, at all. Like, people just all agreeing that they have the same mentality as everybody else, and like that is completely not the case. Like, everybody thinks 100% differently from me, like in almost everything, you know. So that was kind of the reason. I'm just like, all right, so like everybody here just be thinking the same thing. I don't think so. Like, we're not robots here. Like, come on. But yeah, that was just that was kind of the reason why I'm like, people aren't really talking about this. They're not really like, they either don't want to talk about it, or afraid to talk about it, or think that everybody thinks like them. And I'm just like, this ain't the case. Like, this is not. No, bro, not the case. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. What was a quarantine like graduating? I know that must have been rough. Like,
yeah, it was rough. It sucked. I didn't want to come home, so I extended my stay at Hughes for as long as possible. You know, kind of shame I didn't graduate, but it's whatever now at this point. But yeah, I got to spend time with people. You know, for probably will never see them again. Just kind of sucks, but you know, those moments, you know, hanging out with them, just chilling with them, you know, it was pretty impactful, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was a good, like, okay, I'm still in school technically. So once I dip, I'm out. I'm officially a graduate student. I gotta go on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. It was a good experience, and I'm gonna miss it.
I miss it too, man. I know it must have been rough. Just like, not even the graduation. That doesn't really. You got your degree, whatever. It's just the parties, the final darties, the final size, the final weekend chill with everybody. It's missing out on that. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, it was sad. Like, no graduation weekend. Like, dang, that sucks, bro. Like, damn. But yeah, man. Like, I had fun while it lasted. It was mad dope. Like, I'll always remember it. But yeah. Yeah, it was a little, like, I cried a little. I'm like, damn, tear.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
not the end of the world.
Crazy times, man. Like, crazy times. Like,
yeah, crazy times we're living in, bro. I'm just like, bro, we definitely in the Matrix right now.
Yeah,
we definitely in the Matrix.
Yeah, it was so crazy. Like, the government admitted that some like UFO tapes were like legit, and then nobody even cares. That's like under the water. It's like, whatever, we'll deal with that later.
It's like, wait, this is kind of like big, because like these orbs are just flying around, just disappearing, reappearing, fly away. Like, bro, what's happening right now? Like,
whatever.
Tell me. Nah, but it's gonna be crazy for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. 2020s. You know how like 100 years ago was like the Roaring 20s.
Yeah.
This is gonna be the eye-opening 20s, because mad things is gonna be popping up. Next thing you know, Bigfoot's gonna be walking around. It's like, all right, so everything was a lie. Everything was a lie. Niggas got lied to me. You know, it's gonna be hilarious. It's gonna be interesting, bro. No doubt.
No doubt, bro. And in terms of like just how 2020 is gonna end, back to what you were saying about politics, man. I feel like Trump has a good chance of coming up for a re-election because I don't really believe that Joe Biden has it, like has enough support. And also voting is a lot harder under quarantine and things like that. So it's just crazy. Who knows how it's gonna go?
Yeah, it's just a lot of like, what's happening. And Joe, like he was in the Congress for like 44 years. Like, he passed the crime bill, but that does not look good,
Yeah,
at all. So,
yeah, they both had their fair share of controversy.
Oh yeah, yeah. But but I will say with Trump, like he is, like what he says he was gonna do, he did it. Like a lot of people like who believe in him, especially me who see what he did. A lot of people are like, all right, you're a person who actually keeps your word instead of just saying something and not keeping it. So I think that's one of the reasons why people are gonna vote for him. Yeah, a lot of people are gonna be pissed. But
At the same time, though, he does like lie a lot in terms of that's the reason why he's.
I mean that's that's everybody. Like, but I feel like the appeal is like he appeals to Americans because Americans don't like being told what to do. Like what? You tell me what to do, what I can say. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. But yeah, he has to cool it a little bit. Just hop off Twitter for a bit, like chill out. Like you're not a celebrity anymore. You're the commander in chief. Just tone it down a little bit, bro. Like.
What do you think about like the fact that he is sort of like a criminal in a sense? Like he's been accused of sexual harassment. Some cases were accurate and things like that. Or actually, what do you think that people don't seem to actually care about? Some of the corrupt things he does and has done, and they sort of like choose to ignore that.
Yeah,
and
I mean that's
supportive of him.
Yeah, I mean that's everyone though. That's literally everybody that's been like in this position, and I mean controversy is gonna come from every direction. If it's factual, like if there's like strong enough evidence, oh yeah, you're gonna get help. Like, that. I don't care if it's Trump. Like, I don't care if the next president is whoever it is. Like, if there's actual proof of this, like not just people saying stuff, but like actually, like this is video, like this can be fact checked over and over and over again. Like, yeah, you're stupid. It's cool. But like, the whole thing, like they were talking about Russia, like it never amounted to anything because it was all a lie. Like it was literally all a lie. So like stuff like that,
Yeah, I was talking to one of my other friends, my female friends, about this because I was wondering, in particular, like with like people in the minority community who support Trump and women who support Trump, because coming into this, he had like all these sexual allegation cases. He was caught on tape saying the famous "grab her by the pussy" thing, which was wild, and his relationship with what's that dude that just died? That he got like he went to jail and he committed suicide.
Epstein.
Yeah, Epstein. His relationship with Epstein and all these things. So I was wondering, I was trying to get into their headspace. Like, is it, because I understand that a lot of the reason why some people have voted for Trump is because they just vote for Republican parties. Where the party aligns with their viewpoints. So regardless of who their candidate is, that's who they're going to go for. And I understand that, even though I think it's a little selfish. But I understand, it makes sense. You're looking out for yourself. And I can't knock anyone for doing that. But, people who aren't like in that community or in that category where some of his ideals won't necessarily benefit you. What do you think? I don't know.
I mean, a lot of people, so a lot of things happen because, so a lot of people who aren't Republican, independent people, or just like free thinkers who had no side, they were like, all right, so, I mean, this guy's like, he's making an impact, first of all, in the media, because they're like nonstop attacking him and have been attacking him nonstop. And the same energy was not received for Obama. So, like, people ain't stupid. Like, the same heat you giving him, why didn't you give Obama? Like, what?
Obama
you know
was
what I'm saying?
attacked, but not to that extent.
yeah, like nine times out of 10, you were just all like, yeah, Mr. President. Like, no, bro, like the same beef. Like, no, reciprocate the energy. But a lot of people saw like, oh, he was like. A lot of people also like the fact that he wasn't a politician because a lot of people have this conception that politicians are crooks. Like, yeah, on both sides, like they crooks.
They do.
And then also a lot of people like really hate Hillary because Hillary has some deep stuff that she's done.
Yeah.
She actually went to court on Tuesday because she had to go to testify
I saw
for
that.
more emails. Like, is it still on her ass, bro? Like, this is not gonna wait, you know. So like a lot of people do not trust. They didn't trust her. That's what she felt. I mean, you know. So yeah, but he was like an outsider, like you know. So a lot of people really gravitated to that. They're like, we had enough of this crap in like Washington, and this guy is a billionaire, so he knows how to work money. Like he knows how to finesse money. And then also, you know, the same like when I talk about the news media, like before Trump ran, like everybody in their mama was shouting out, you know, Trump in their music videos or in the songs and the lyrics, you know, talking about he's a great guy and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So like I don't know, like there's like and then as soon as he ran, they just started attacking him nonstop. I'm like, bro, like this is interesting, you know?
Do you think
So
that?
I don't know.
Do you think that these like last 4 years have been like a successful presidency for Trump for the most part?
I think so. Because yeah, a lot of people are gonna be like, yep, like this guy has been doing what he said. Like he said he was gonna build a wall, he built the wall. Like he said he was gonna lower unemployment, he lowered unemployment. He said he's gonna help us with tariffs, like he's beating China down, you know. He said he was gonna focus on America and America left like the World Health Organization and blah blah blah, you know. So he's like and that was like what people were gravitating. His message was make America great again. So like focus America, not globalization. Where we like you know what I'm saying, like focus on us first. So like I think that's why people really gravitate to him. But yeah, like it's interesting now. But I think he's been and he's also like I don't know if you know like the First Step Act. Like he's helped like people who were in prison get out of prison who were charged with petty charges and put in jail. He also gave more money than Obama to HBCUs. You know, like he didn't have to do that. You know, what else? He also offered opportunity zones. So like he's been doing stuff. Like and people can speculate, oh, it was kind of his heart, or you know, he was coerced. But that's opinion, right? Like what have you been actually been doing? Like, you've been doing this. Like, okay, like I see your track record. You know, you've actually been doing stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and then like if when this whole coronavirus is clipped, and if unemployment goes down and people start to get jobs again, like people are just gonna love him even more. You know what I'm saying? Like they're gonna love like this. They're gonna love him, right? Because like they're gonna be like, all right, so even the coronavirus, when like record unemployment went up, 3 years later we're down again. Like it's interesting, you know. But like that's just my speculation. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but if it does, like it's gonna be wild.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen as much like support for Trump as as besides the Trump supporters in terms of when people say Trump supporters, the people who are like outly are Trump supporters, like MAGA hat people, but like the people who are like are Republicans and whatnot. I think they've been like pretty quiet.
I mean,
yeah,
but that's the whole thing. Like the people who are a lot like people don't like to say who they're gonna vote for. Like and there's a reason why they call it the silent majority. Because people ain't gonna be loud. Like the people who are loud, like they're the minority. They just think they're the majority, but they're not. Like there's people who are quiet. They're just like, all right, man, but like watch, like we about to, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what's gonna happen. Like and if it's gonna be a landslide, bro, I don't know. Like I don't know, but if it is, bro, like, it's gonna be I don't know.
Yeah, as
something.
Yeah, as a person who's like not an advocate for Trump myself, like I definitely recognize that that's a possibility, especially just in terms of the fact that it's harder to vote under quarantine and just quarantine itself in terms of and also Joe Biden. I don't think Joe Biden was the best Democratic candidate, so I definitely do see a small chance of not a chance, like a bigger chance of Trump winning than I hope or thought so. Obviously, I hope against it because I'm not I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't believe in his values. But
Right.
that's a whole nother topic. We've already been talking
Facts.
for mad long.
Facts.
But so
Facts,
before we end the podcast, this has been a dope conversation.
Yeah.
I have this thing that I do for my guests because I call my podcast pages instead of episodes. So it's sort of like a book, and each page is like a different character. And to justify that, I have like a story that goes through where dictated by my guest. You ever play that game where I say a line of a story and then you continue it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that. So I said a line in my first podcast, and my guests have been continuing that story. So you're just gonna, I'm gonna tell you the previous line or the previous two lines, and then you're gonna continue on the story with another sentence. All right.
Cool.
All right. So the previous lines are, he walked downstairs in his pajamas behind his bar, and he served himself a drink and his homeless friend Rick that comes by every morning. Then they went out for a walk. So you just gotta continue on after then they went out for a walk. So you can say whatever they want. Then they went out for a walk and they started fighting, or then they went out for the walk and I don't know, went separate ways. However you want to take it. Go.
Then they went out for a walk, and a vortex into the unknown opened up in front of them.
I like how you kept it open. Like the vortex opened, but the next guest doesn't have to say they went into the vortex. So
Yeah,
that's
we could have
fine.
been like, yo, we about to go back home.
You just kept that possibility. That's fire. That's fire. Thank you for being a guest. We had a dope
No
conversation,
problem.
productive. We don't agree in a lot of things, but we still respect each other and have a good
Yeah, bro.
conversation, and that's something that I think is important.